This Sacramento Kings season has been nothing short of a roller coaster ride with highs and lows, ups and downs, and tonight in Los Angeles, the entire season was summed up in one basketball game where the roller coaster went through Crypto.com Arena, and thankfully, the Kings came out the other side with a victory. We'll break it all down right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter from ABC 10 News. And I'm not going to lie to you, based off of how this game started, how that first quarter went, really until the final minute or so of that first quarter, I was already mentally preparing to not be a very happy camper on tonight's podcast. The significance of this game is not necessarily a game 82, win and you're in the playoffs, lose and you're out type situation. Certainly there have been higher stakes games in the history of the Kings and Lakers rivalry, but this game was a significant one, not just for the Sacramento Kings, but for the Los Angeles Lakers as well. This is one of those games that both teams can look back on as a major difference maker of them actually making it into the playoffs outright with a top 6 seed in the Western Conference, or falling out of it. With the Los Angeles Lakers loss tonight, they dropped to 10th in the West. Now, I don't think any team in the top 10 right now is going to fall out of the top 10. The gap between the Lakers in 10th and I believe the Jazz in 11th is pretty significant. So it's not like the Lakers are plummeting out of the postseason picture altogether. But I felt that while mathematically they still had a chance, tonight was a very, very good opportunity for the Lakers to insert themselves into a conversation for actually finishing as a top 6 seed, which I don't think they've been in that conversation for the vast majority of this season. They had that opportunity and they came up short, but it looked like they recognized that opportunity out of the gate. The Los Angeles Lakers hit the floor running tonight, and the Sacramento Kings had unfortunately another one of their kind of lethargic, poor starts where they dug themselves into a hole that they had to work out of. And I did not feel, based off that start, that it was going to be a good night. The Kings were missing all their shots. Everything was rimming short. It was just a dreadful start. And it's the perfect start of the roller coaster ride of this game and the roller coaster ride of the season, right? Far too many times the Kings have needed to fall behind big or find themselves in a hole to wake themselves up, right? The Kings were down 37-18 early on in this game in the first quarter. Like I mentioned, they were not doing a good job taking care of the basketball. They had 4 or 5 turnovers pretty early in this game. They were sloppy. Their shots were short. De'Aaron Fox was in attack mode early on, and of course, De'Aaron was excellent in this game, and we'll get into that. Malik Monk, excellent as well. The bench came in and truly bailed out the starters. But the Kings starting lineup looked terrible. Sacramento did not look ready to go. They are a team that is tremendously self-aware. This team knows what they're struggling with. They know what they're going through. They know where their pitfalls are. They know that sometimes they perform better on the road than at home. They're aware of their issues just like you and I are aware of their issues. But for some reason, even if they recognize the magnitude of the game, they don't play like it's that important, or they don't play like it's as significant as it is. And the Kings certainly did not take or start this game playing like they were in the race for a actual playoff spot and not at risk of finishing in a play-in spot, which I believe this Kings team is trying to avoid at all costs. Well, thankfully, they snapped out of that. So the roller coaster started with a plummet, right? It started on a very low note. The Kings shot 45%, 10 of 22 from the field, and 20%, 2 of 10 from three-point range. We talk about it a lot with this Kings team. They live or die by the three-point shot. It looked like they were going to die early because that three-point shot was not falling. Meanwhile, the Lakers, they were focused, they were dialed. LeBron James and company came out in attack mode. credit to the Sacramento Kings. They ended the first quarter on a 10-0 run, capped off by a De'Aaron Fox buzzer beater to end the first quarter. That made the final score. I think they were down 8 by the end of that first quarter. Made it a little more respectable. And maybe it wasn't 8. I honestly don't remember what the score was at the end of the first quarter. I know the Kings were up by 19 points, and they were able to go on a little bit of a run to chip it down to, I think, single digits at the end of that quarter. I was happy to see them basically overcome a disaster of a quarter and make it more manageable going into the second quarter. That being said, I still recognize the issue of this Kings team, which is not waking up until things are going wrong, not waking up until things are getting out of hand and they realize it's not like a attack mode, it's almost a survival mode, right? Very much that 10-0 run I felt at the end of the first quarter was not the Kings suddenly attacking. It was them trying to survive and trying to salvage what was a dreadful start to this game. Thankfully, they rode the momentum from that 10-0 start into the absolute explosion of a second quarter, which is us on this roller coaster going right back up, right? You've plummeted down at full speed, and the second quarter was going up and into a classic like loop-de-loop. That's what that second quarter looked like. It just got chaotic. The Kings outscore the Lakers 44-20 in the second quarter, where the Kings shot 78% from the field and 80%, 8 of 10 from three-point range. In the entire second quarter, the Kings only missed 5 shots. I think they hit 14, 15, or 16 consecutive shots during that quarter. They would not miss. And it was led, of course, by De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk, and I'll talk about both of them in just a little bit because they were fantastic. But it also came from the bench, right? Keon Ellis came into this game and completely changed the game. I'm going to talk about Keon and I'm going to talk about Davion in the next segment because both guys are naturally competing against each other for a rotational spot. And I know which one of those two guys that I'm choosing to hold down that spot for the rest of this season. That being said, both of them played really, really well tonight, particularly during that shift in the game where the Kings went from down big to up big. A lot of that came from the way that those two played specifically in that late first and mainly second quarter. So I'll talk about those guys in a little bit. But of course, I just mentioned the shooting percentages, right? The shots start to fall. And everybody, and obviously, like I said, live or die by the three-point shot. The Kings start living. They shoot 80% from three. Suddenly they won't miss, right? So naturally, you work yourself back into a game and take a quick lead when you're not missing shots. But I also want to point out the fact that the Kings did a fantastic job. Once the momentum shifted, they did an excellent job taking care of the basketball. When the Kings are at their worst this season, when the Kings are falling apart, if you want to go back and look at the film of times like the 2 blown leads, double-digit leads they had against the Chicago Bulls, or when they blew that lead against the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix, that 20-point lead, it usually begins with Sacramento not taking care of the basketball. Sure, they go ice cold offensively too. Shots aren't falling necessarily, but they lose all sorts of source of rhythm because they're not taking care of the basketball. A lot of self-inflicted wounds, unforced turnovers that just kill this team's momentum and flow offensively. And when this team isn't flowing offensively, they're not even close to their best, right? Well, the Kings did a much better job taking care of the basketball so that they could get up all the good looks that they got in that second quarter. So, of course, credit to the shot making. It was incredible. But don't let the Kings protecting the basketball during that stretch be brushed under the rug, because that's a very important aspect of this team. But then, right, just like this season is gone, the Kings get into a big hole and work their way out of it, and now they're building up a lead, but there's still a lot of time left. And here comes LeBron James, right? LeBron in like the mid to late third quarter when the Kings go up by 22 points, the exact same lead that they had against the Chicago Bulls where they blew it in the late third quarter and fourth quarter. Up 22 points. LeBron James and the Lakers come surging. LeBron ended up with 31 points on the night, 10 of 16 from the field, 5 rebounds, 13 assists. LeBron was sensational tonight. Unfortunately, he did leave the game early with a little bit of an injury. That helped the Kings ultimately secure the victory. He said he was fine after the game, so I think LeBron's going to be fine. But LeBron played fantastic, and he really put the team on his back and tried to drag them back into it. He, by himself, basically got that 22-point lead down to 12. The closest the Lakers would get is 10, which, of course, the Kings beat the Lakers by 10, 130-120. But we have this moment where late in the third quarter, the Lakers suddenly go on this push, or LeBron James specifically goes on this push, and that big Kings lead is now down to that territory of, oh no, right? 12 points is still a comfortable lead. You still have a semi-comfortable lead. You still have a double-digit lead going into the fourth quarter, but you're on the road. Arguably the greatest player of all time is rolling. The Lakers have a little bit of momentum. Here is an opportunity for the Sacramento Kings to right a wrong from 2 nights ago, to show that they can, the same exact lead. Granted, this time it's on the road versus at home, and we know the Kings have performed better on the road than at home for some reason. Same exact scenario, or as close to the same scenario as you could ask for. You have a lead. It's late. That your opponent is trying to make a push to get back into it. Hold the line. Secure the win. You did the hard part. You battled back and even built a big lead. Now you have to hold it. And what did the Kings do? In the fourth quarter, they slammed the door shut. Mainly De'Aaron Fox slammed the door shut. Fox was incredible tonight. He tied his career high, 44 points. It looked like there in the fourth quarter, he knew that he was close to his career high and he was trying to break it. And he was also, I imagine, he was eyeballing Keegan Murray's, 47 points, and was probably trying to break that too for bragging rights over Keegan. That's just the relationship that those two guys have. But he unfortunately wasn't able to get it. But still, De'Aaron Fox was sensational tonight. 44 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. And then right behind him, Malik Monk, who, remember, was a Los Angeles Laker 2 seasons ago. Before he came to the Sacramento Kings, Malik Monk's best year of his career was with the Lakers. Now, because of their cap situation, they were not able to afford him. The Kings got him on the bargain contract that he is still on right now. He has become a 6th man of the year here in Sacramento, and the Kings are going to have to worry about paying him this offseason, which we've talked about a lot this year, and that's a conversation for another time. But I don't know if Malik, it's like, I don't know why it would be necessarily vengeance mode, because it's not like the Lakers decided just to let him go. I'm sure they wish they could have brought him back. But Malik recognized the significance of the game. He helped turn the momentum around in that first half for sure, and then was right behind De'Aaron Fox with his 26 points. Super efficient, 10 of 19 from the field. Also had 5 rebounds, still did his distribution, his job as a distributor with 8 assists, and had 2 steals as well with De'Aaron Fox. So Fox and Monk were excellent. But they're not the main guards I want to talk about. I want to talk about Keon Ellis. I want to talk about Davion Mitchell. We also have to have a conversation about Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter. Plus, once again, Domantas Sabonis owns Anthony Davis. That's all still to come here right on Locked On Kings. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whatever you need, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back, no questions asked. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So let's talk about Keon Ellis and Davion Mitchell a little bit. We'll start with Davion Mitchell, who, I'll be completely honest, if you follow me on social media at MattGeorgeSack and were following along with me during the game, Davion Mitchell made me eat my words tonight, because Davion was one of the first guys off the bench when the Kings were off to their poor start. He was fine, but overall this season, I think overall for his Kings career, Davion Mitchell has not been tremendously impressive. You respect what he does on the defensive end, but it doesn't make a significant enough impact to excuse the inconsistencies that he's had on the offensive end, but Davion tonight shut me up because as he continued to play in that first half, he looked fantastic, and it was on the offensive end of the floor. Since that players-only meeting, Davion Mitchell has been really, really efficient offensively. Really efficient. I think over the last handful of months, he's shooting in the 40s from three-point range percentage-wise. He's done a really good job over the past couple of games of putting the ball on the floor, using that quick burst that he has to get to that mid-range jumper or that elbow jumper that he really, really likes, and that's a good, efficient shot for him. But tonight, it was the three-point shot. Davion Mitchell went 4 of 4 from three-point range. All 12 of his points came from the three-point line, and they all came in the first half. Now, would I have liked to see a more complete game from Davion? Maybe, if I'm being nitpicky. Like, I would like to have seen him maybe score a little bit more in the second half and build off of that hot shooting in the first half. But the Kings needed that offensive burst from Davion in that first half when they were not only trying to explode to build a lead like they did in the second quarter, but when they were trying to close the gap late in the first quarter. Davion Mitchell was a massively impactful player tonight. I give him all the credit in the world. That being said, naturally, when it comes to their rotational spots and their playing time, it's been Davion Mitchell versus Keon Ellis. Typically, you're not seeing both of them on the floor at the same time. Typically, you're not seeing both of them get a decent chunk of playing time at the same time. It's one or the other, right? Well, tonight, that was different. We'll get into why that was different a little bit based off of how the starters performed. But truly, as impressive as Davion Mitchell was, and I'm taking nothing away from him, this game changed when Keon Ellis checked in. Keon Ellis checked in, and the Kings immediately went on that run. They immediately started to close the gap, and that momentum carried on with Keon on the floor for much of that second quarter. Now, Keon Ellis finished with 5 points, 3 rebounds, and a steal. So it's not like he came into the game and he was the one doing all the scoring. He was the one making massive defensive plays. He was the one knocking down the threes, right? We have to be careful with how much credit we give a player. But it is not coincidental that when Keon Ellis is on the floor, the Sacramento Kings have been playing good basketball consistently this season. It's not coincidental that in the 4 starts that Keon Ellis has had in place of the injured De'Aaron Fox at 2 separate times this season, in those 4 starts, the Sacramento Kings are 4-0. Again, it's not because Keon Ellis is starting and filling the shoes of De'Aaron Fox and scoring Fox's 27 points per game. That's not what Keon's doing. But Keon is filling his role. When Keon is on the floor, he recognizes how he can make an impact defensively. He also recognizes how he can at least move the ball around offensively. He can facilitate. Tonight, he knocked down a 3 when he was open, right? Keon knows how to make impactful winning plays with this Kings team. It's what's transitioned him from a two-way player to a full roster spot player. Now, the reality of the situation is I think it's pretty unlikely that the Kings are able to get big minutes or consistent minutes for both Keon and Davion for the remainder of the season. I still feel like it's going to be one or the other. It's just unfortunately the way it is. I'm not saying that what happened tonight won't happen again, and hopefully it does happen again, because when those two are on, the Kings are in a very good spot. When Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox can be doing their thing, and you're still getting 2 really, really good performances out of 2 other guards, that's excellent for the Sacramento Kings. Mike Brown was asked in practice yesterday about his decision between Davion and Keon, and he told us he leans more towards Davion when both guys are playing well because of Davion's experience. And I understand that. Davion got minutes guarding Steph Curry in the playoffs. Davion has been a consistent NBA player throughout his entire career, while Keon Ellis has bounced between Stockton and Sacramento, G League, two-way, and now Kings full contract, right? But because of what the eye test is showing me, what the numbers are showing me, what the results are showing me, I just think Keon Ellis is more consistently a winning basketball player, or makes more consistent winning plays. Calling him a winning basketball player more than Davion Mitchell might not be fair, because both guys have very specific and limited roles, right? So if Davion Mitchell is playing and the Kings are losing, but De'Aaron Fox isn't scoring at the rate that he's scoring, or Domantas Sabonis is having a bad game. You can't put that all on the shoulders of Davion, just like you can't put all this success on Keon for being 4-0 as a starter when other guys are stepping up and picking up that De'Aaron Fox scoring load when Fox has been out, right? There's a balance to each side. So maybe saying that Keon is more of a winning basketball player than Davion is not fair. But whatever it is, the way Keon plays with this Kings team and the way he's played this season, he has impacted winning, I feel, more than Davion has. And winning is the name of the game from this point on. So, in my opinion, if I'm choosing between the two of them, I think Keon should have the consistent rotational spot on a nightly basis. And then if somebody else isn't playing well and there's opportunity for Davion, sure, bring him right back in because he's earned that. Now, I think when we're looking at tomorrow night against the San Antonio Spurs, and at least in the near future, after how well Davion played tonight, I don't think Mike can make that move yet. I don't think he's going to. I don't think he'll feel comfortable doing it, because how do you demote somebody who recently has been playing well and is giving you more offensively than really he has in a long time? And I'm talking about Davion Mitchell here. So my feeling is I would pick Keon over Davion at this point. But I believe, because of the circumstances and because of who I believe and know Mike Brown to be, it's still going to be Davion's spot until further notice. But the other could get playing time based off of what's going on with one guy in particular. That's Kevin Huerter. But I want to talk about Harrison Barnes as well here. I want to talk about HB because both he and Kevin did not play in the second quarter when the Kings went on their run. Both of them were not fully responsible, but played a big part in the Sacramento Kings' terrible start and lethargic start to this game. In fact, Harrison played 15 minutes. Kevin Huerter only played 12 minutes. Here's why Harrison Barnes has any sort of edge over Kevin Huerter, for whether it's a longer leash or he gets more forgiveness or more of a safety net, I suppose. One is his position, right? The Kings just do not have a lot of depth at his position. They do not have a lot of guys who are 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" wing players. They don't. So Harrison, naturally, because of his size and the position that he plays, he has more of a security net or safety blanket because of that. Also, I think it's abundantly clear that Mike Brown trusts Harrison a whole hell of a lot more than he trusts Kevin, right? And I think it's because, one, they've worked together before. Two, Harrison is a established veteran. Not that Kevin is a super young player, but Harrison knows what it takes to win a championship or in the playoffs or just in general. And he's Mr. Consistent with now 201 consecutive starts for the Sacramento Kings. Kevin, on the other hand, is a clear target every single night, right? Watch the first or second play of the opposing offense almost every single game is right at Kevin. The Lakers did it tonight. The Bulls did it. Every single team is coming at Kevin and looking at Kevin like food right now. Here's the thing about Kevin Huerter. It's not that he's not trying, right? I've watched him all season long try to put in the work. He's had good moments, breakthrough moments, good games, got some big rebounds, made some big steals, some decent defensive plays. But ultimately, Kevin is the weakest link on an already relatively weak defensive team. Teams see that they can target Kevin offensively, and more often than not, it'll work for them. To the very least, they will get a good shot. I thought Kevin Huerter kind of dug his own grave with one play in particular early in this game. The Kings were in shambles. They turned the ball over. The Lakers get out in transition. I think it was LeBron throws the ball ahead to Anthony Davis, who has a layup at the rim, and Kevin Huerter fouls him with just this weak slap across the arm or slap on the side. Doesn't even try to foul him hard. It's an easy three-point play for Anthony Davis. At that point, I was like, yeah, get Kevin out of here. Because defensively, he's a target. Now he's making lazy, bad fouls in transition. And offensively, he wasn't giving you anything. At this point in time, again, it's not because I don't like the guy, and I've talked about this before. I would be shocked if Kevin Huerter is a Sacramento King next season. He's still on your team now. You have to ride it out. It is what it is, and I'm not saying bench him for the rest of the season. Those fans who feel that way, you're entitled to your opinion. I don't think that's fair at all. I think that's absurd. I think Kevin Huerter will play a large part in the Kings hopefully making it to the playoffs and then hopefully winning in the playoffs. I think Kevin will certainly play a role in that with his three-point shooting specifically. But there is a clear disconnect in where Mike Brown and the Kings want to go and where Kevin Huerter's at. And that was pretty apparent with how this game started tonight. So if Kevin Huerter's not playing well, sure, give both Keon Ellis and Davion Mitchell opportunity. But I hope Kevin Huerter can figure it out because he is a valuable asset to this team, of course, on the offensive end of the ball. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by BetterHelp. If you're considering therapy, BetterHelp is perfect for you. Let me explain why. Therapy, mental health, thank goodness, is something that's being taken a lot more seriously. It's become less taboo and more available for everybody. Your mental health is incredibly important, and it doesn't matter where on the scale you are in mental health issues. You could be battling depression or have severe childhood trauma or things that you're battling through, some really, really tough stuff that you absolutely need to seek a professional to help you through. And if that's you, Godspeed, God bless you. I hope you're able to work through that. But you could also be someone who is just going through daily life and you don't know how certain issues might be weighing on you. You don't know that speaking to a licensed professional, speaking to someone who is there to walk with you but is unbiased on your life, has no horse in the race, so to speak. They don't really necessarily know who you are. They're just there to help you work through what you've been going through and provide an outside perspective on your life. Those therapists, those licensed professionals can be monumental game changers, right? I was one of those people that didn't think that my problems were big enough for therapy. I started going and seeing my therapist, TJ, during the pandemic. Been seeing him every single month since, over the last, 3-4 years now. TJ has been incredibly important for me and helped me unpack things going back to my childhood that I didn't even think about or realize were impacting my life, and all stemmed from just the little things, or so thought little things, that I was dealing with in my daily life. BetterHelp brings therapy to you. It meets you where you're at. You can get connected with a large database of thousands of licensed therapists and professionals out there who can meet and work with you on your schedule, on your time. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Go to BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. If you've been paying attention, you'd know that Domantas Sabonis owns Anthony Davis. Tonight was no different. Domantas Sabonis dominated Anthony Davis again. If in some weird scenario that the Sacramento Kings and Los Angeles Lakers met in an actual playoff series, not a play-in game because that's a one game and anything can happen, but in an actual playoff series, I feel like that would be the coming out party in a lot of ways for Domas. Because if people were paying attention, I know because the Lakers are the Lakers and people are watching, even though they're not saying anything on social media, people see how much Sabonis dominates AD frequently. But if we got a best-of-7 series where AD was doing this Sabonis was doing this to AD game after game after game after game over the course of a playoff series, man, maybe people would finally be willing to give Sabonis the credit that he deserves. Tonight, it was no different. 16 points, 20 rebounds, 12 assists, 2 steals for Domantas Sabonis, his 22nd triple-double of the season, which still leads the league in triple-doubles. He now has the third most triple-doubles in a season by a center ever. Number 2 is Nikola Jokic. Number 1 is Wilt Chamberlain. Meanwhile, Anthony Davis, 14 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists. Sabonis dominated him on the glass, especially the offensive glass down the stretch. Domantas Sabonis now 9-0 all time against Anthony Davis. 9-0. It's not even a competition at this point. I'm not trying to disrespect AD, but I point this out as aggressively and harshly as it deserves to be pointed out because once again, Anthony Davis was labeled and picked by the league and the coaches and the fans and everybody as an all-star and better than Domantas Sabonis when he's playing on a worse team, and every time these two guys play, Sabonis eats him alive. It's not close. Now, AD has had his fair share of good games and good stat lines against Sabonis. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he still had a double-double, but if you watch the game tonight, AD was a non-factor. He was bad. He didn't do anything. Domantas Sabonis nearly had a double-double in just assists and rebounds before he really got going offensively. Now, also, shout out to the Kings in the paint, period. The Kings outscored the Lakers 76-50 in the paint. Sabonis was a decent part of that. Of course, De'Aaron Fox getting downhill, Malik Monk getting to the rim, and others as well was a big part of that. But the Kings dominated the paint, and naturally you look at the center battle because of that. Anthony Davis certainly did not make any kind of impact protecting the rim, and Sabonis dominated him in every way in this game tonight. Even outscored him, which is a big deal when people say AD is the scorer and the offensive player, and Domantas Sabonis cannot compete in that sense. Again, one game sample size, I know that, but we're not just talking about one game. 9 games in the career of these two players. 9 times they have met. Domantas Sabonis has beaten Anthony Davis every single time. So now, boy, I mean, we've been here a million times, right? What do you do tomorrow? Kings and Spurs back in Sacramento tomorrow. You got another big win. You're half a game back of the Phoenix Suns in 6th. Half a game back. The Suns play the Toronto Raptors tomorrow, which is probably bad news for the Kings because it's unlikely the Suns lose that game unless the Suns decide to take a page out of the Kings playbook, follow up a really, really impressive win without Devin Booker over the defending champion Denver Nuggets with a random weird loss to the Toronto Raptors. But even if the Suns win tomorrow, 2 out of their next 3 games are against the Boston Celtics. The 3rd game out of those 3 games is against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who just beat the Boston Celtics. And again, the Suns are without Devin Booker right now because of injury. So the Suns are vulnerable. This is the time to strike, but you have to do it by winning games like tomorrow night. I already would have said that tomorrow night's game, even on the second night of a back-to-back, is a must-win game. You kind of made it that way because of your loss to the Chicago Bulls. But now, Victor Wembanyama is out. He's not playing with an ankle sprain tomorrow night. That probably is sending alarm bells off in your head. I know I made the joke on social media, but I know I was hearing the alarms when I read that. Greg Popovich has figured it out. To beat the Sacramento Kings on their home floor, just rest your best player. God, I hope it doesn't happen again. I won't be surprised in the slightest if it does. None of us will, so don't be blindsided by it if it does happen. But in so many ways, it can't happen, right? To me, as impressive as this Lakers victory is, it sounds so stupid to say, but the Kings winning tomorrow night at home, second night of a back-to-back against a shorthanded Spurs team would almost be even more impressive than the Lakers win based off of who this team has shown themselves to be over the course of this season. The roller coaster continues, and I hope to God we're still going up tomorrow because I can't handle another steep drop-off against a shorthanded team on your home floor. Please, Kings, don't do it to us again. Regardless of what happens, I'll, of course, have a Locked On Kings podcast for you from the Golden One Center tomorrow. If you're going to the game, let me know. Would love to see you. I'm top of section 105. You can hit me up on Twitter at MattGeorgeSack. You can email me, MattGeorgeSports@gmail.com. We can set up a time to meet before the game or during halftime or something. Would love to say hello and chat with you a little bit and thank you in person for supporting this podcast. But I hope you join me on the podcast post-game regardless of that. Appreciate your support. As always, want to hear your thoughts on this game. YouTubers, make sure you're getting loose in the comment section down below, sharing your thoughts on this Lakers win, how you're feeling about the Spurs game tomorrow. Let's talk about it. I appreciate it as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.